Hello. I'd like to discuss living behind a mask. And I've done it. I've been there. I've been where you are. Most of you are living behind a mask. Uh, when we're children, we're not born with a mask. The mask is designed, fitted, and put on us. And it depends on your family, depends on your school, your religion, what mask you wear. Uh, a little Jewish boy gets a yarmulke. He has to wear the Jewish clothing, and same with the girl. She has to dress like a Jewish girl. Same with an Arab, and blacks dress a certain way, and whites dress a certain way, and that's all conditioned. It's all taught to you. And when if you're a white boy and you want to wear a dress, you're told you can't do that. That boys don't wear dresses. So that is the mask. Um, Now, my whole reason for doing this is not to have men all of a sudden wear dresses. And obviously, I don't try to hide what I do. I'm pretty blatant about it. And I always wasn't. I really wasn't. I was very afraid to express this part of me. And now I don't care. Now I go to court like this. I go to court in a pink miniskirt with high heels, and the judge thinks I'm crazy. I've been labeled crazy. I've been to psych wards. Um, I've had people jump me. I've had 4 or 5 people try to beat me up all at one time, several times. I'm banned from all AA meetings in Nassau County because I wear dresses and because I don't hide in the corner. And when I go to a meeting, I sit up front. I raise my hand. I speak, and speak my opinion. And they find that unsavory, let's say. And they ban me. They start fights with me first, so they can ban me. And it's funny. They start a fight with me, and then they ban me. But that's the way it happens. But so I'm not saying that if you decide to live your life without a mask on, it's going to be an easy road because it's not. Because society is so geared and so pressured to have you put back that mask. And stay behind that mask and don't ever show your real face. And, like if you work in an office and you're a guy, I'm sure showing up on a work day in a dress instead of a suit, you know, probably scares the hell out of you. And probably think I'll get fired. You probably think everybody will make fun of me. They'll think I'm gay. Um all kinds of things. And none of that could be true. But it's in your head, it's behind your mask. It's you're hiding behind that mask, and you won't let yourself be free. Like I said, I'm not trying to get all all men to wear masks, wear dresses, and I'm not saying that men that do wear dresses are not hiding behind a mask because they're hiding behind a different mask. That's all, and they're still hiding behind a mask. And it's just it's very brave for a man to say he likes to have sex with a man. I mean, because society is so geared against that, and girls don't like it. It's just not not acceptable. I mean, it's being more acceptable today, but back in the old days, in Greek days, it was very acceptable. It was very normal. It was daily practice. You know, they didn't care and what people thought because there was no negative thought about it. It was normal. But nowadays, it's and the reason now is because the people that are afraid to say they like to have sex with men and want to have sex with men don't want anybody else to have sex with men when they can't because they're too afraid, and it's just they want to keep everybody in the closet so that they don't look weird because they can say, ah, everybody's in the closet, so am I. So I don't have to admit it. I don't have to face myself. I don't have to look at myself in the mirror in that way. And when they look in the mirror, they don't see uh, a weird person. But they're not weird. I mean, that's what their social conditioning has taught them to think is weird, and it's not. Uh, for some people, and I'm not saying for all, but some people having sex with men is completely normal, uh, completely normal, and they love it, and they want more and more of it, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. Uh, just as there's nothing wrong with a man wanting to have sex with a woman. Uh, Now, of course, there are moral issues as far as you don't want to be a male whore or a female whore. You have to have some self-respect, some integrity, and you know, I don't say limit yourself, but use discretion. And there are sex parties and stuff, and that's normal. That's okay. Uh, but it's just like around children. You shouldn't educate children about sex. I mean, because they're too young, they don't understand, and because they're teenagers, they're 13 or something, and they just experienced puberty. Um, they have a real different look at sex, and they have a real sex drive, and they're susceptible. And you don't want to take advantage of that. You don't want to take advantage of children. That's sick. That's really sick, But people do, and some people are the president, and they do. But it's and you're not in control of your parents and the religion you're born in or the country you're born in, and it's hard to escape the conditioning that entails. Because you'll be ostracized from the family. They'll call you a troublemaker. They'll make you the scapegoat, and give you every reason in the book not to do what you're doing. You know, and uh, and that's really more of a reason to do what you're doing, not to not do it. Uh, you have to fight the system because the system wants you to be a robot. The system wants you to work on the assembly line and hammering the nail in and just keep hammering the nail in for the next 40 years. And then you retire, and then they hammer your nail in your coffin and call it a day. And that's the prescribed life that the majority of people are meant to live. And if you want to live that life, that's fine. But if you don't have to. I live a very good life. I have a lot of freedom. I have no bills. I have no real creditors to speak of. I pay my rent. I eat my food. I eat good food. Um, I eat expensive food. Uh, I don't work. I haven't worked since '99, and I live a good life. And uh, so I didn't follow the robot way of living. And a lot of what we do, we become a lawyer, we become a doctor, or even an accountant, or something that's profitable, and we want to be rich quick. And a lawyer thinks they're going to be rich quick, and a doctor thinks they're going to be rich quick, which doesn't always work out. They have huge student loans. They have to get a job, and it's hard to get a job as a doctor and a lawyer. And if you don't have good grades, um, if you're a junior in a law firm, you're gonna work your butt off to make that get rich quick money, and it's not gonna be so quick, and it's not gonna be so easy. But they don't tell you that in school, and it goes for a lot of jobs. You can be an apprentice plumber or apprentice electrician. Uh, you're not gonna make that much money right away, and you got to work your butt off. And if you get licensed and you pass all the tests and you get licensed, you'll have to do what it entails for that. Now, the reason they do that is because they want to get rich. They're all looking to get rich. And why do they want to get rich? So they can go on vacation, so they can have a family, so they can have a house, so they can have a nice car, so they can afford to support their family, and they can eat well. And sometimes that works out, and sometimes it doesn't. But I know I veered away from the mask thing, but a plumber wears a mask. I don't think you've ever had a plumber come over your house in a dress. That's the male. And I don't think you probably ever will. Because they have to play a prescribed role. You know, and and I think the more you do that, the harder it is to escape that. Because once you get that mask on, it's very hard to get it off. It's very scary to take it off because you don't know what the face behind it looks like. You don't know what the reaction to the face behind it's going to be. And I'm telling you, at first, it's going to be uh, disgust. It's going to be put the mask back on. It's going to be don't do that. It's going to be you're going to regret doing this. All the negatives. And entrepreneurs, when Steve Jobs, he was ridiculed for the way he was. He didn't take showers. He didn't wear shoes. He was very mean to the workers that he worked with. They made him work the night shift because he couldn't deal with people, and people couldn't deal with him. And and they fired him. He started the company. He was the company, and they fired him. So I mean, all the things he didn't wear a mask. And to an extent later on he did wear a mask because he had a lot to lose by not wearing a mask. you know. But in the beginning, he didn't wear a mask, and that was his gold. That was the gold, because rather than taking a shower or wearing shoes or spending time with coworkers, he was working. He was working on Apple. He was working everything that we take for granted today that he created. And we don't look at it that way. We look at it as, he was smelly. No one knows you. And not like, well, because of that, we have Apple. And I think that's the problem. Is that, I might uh, wear I might wear dresses. I might paint my fingernails, but I used to own NewYorkLotto.com. And maybe if I wasn't that type of person, I would never bought that .com. And I created the God Code. So I'm doing other things, and I'm coming at it from an angle that nobody else is coming at it from, and that's why I was able to do the things that I did, because I'm different. I'm doing things different. If Steve Jobs was like everybody else, there would be no Apple, and there would be no Microsoft either, because Microsoft stole everything from Apple. So can you imagine the world without Apple or Microsoft? And that's what it would be if Steve Jobs was normal. You know, uh, they thought Henry Ford was not normal because he paid his workers so much money, and they complained that he paid them so much money, and he developed the assembly line, and all the things he's about. And they thought he was crazy for doing what he did. And yet we have GM, we have all the other companies that build cars the same way Henry Ford did. And without Henry Ford, you might not be driving a car right now. So you gotta give it, the weird. Being weird is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And I'm not telling you if you're not weird right now to go out and be weird. Like don't take showers and don't wear shoes and be nasty to your coworkers. Like somehow that's gonna give you a Steve Jobs future. Because that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. And you have to do it on your own. You have to do it your own way. Uh, and like I said, if you're a guy, I'm not telling you to put on a dress. I'm not telling you to have sex with men. But if you want to, you should. If you deep down, if that's what you want to do, you should do it, and not allow your fear of society, or losing your job, or losing your wife, or losing your kids stop you. And because the ones that stay are the ones that really care about you, and the ones that go never really cared about you at all. So you didn't lose anybody that was important. If you lose a job, the job's not important either. And if you lose the wife's not important either. And it's just you've lost yourself by doing all these things to keep those things in your life, and you've lost yourself in the process. And what I'm saying is find yourself, whatever that may be, whatever that may be. If you're a girl and you want to have sex with girls, go ahead. But realize it's not gonna just be that simple. Uh, you're gonna pay a price for that. But there's always a price to find yourself. That's why most people don't. They don't want to pay the price. It's easier to go along to get along and go to work, collect a pension, and put the nail in the coffin and call it a day. And just say I did what everybody else did. And that's a cop out. Uh, and and you're forgetting the universe. You're forgetting God. You're forgetting the universe and how they play into this. You know, God works in my life. I have uh, low rent. I pay extremely low rent. I don't work for my money. I get money. Uh, all you people are so afraid of being labeled crazy. I'm labeled crazy, and I have a great life. Uh, I have two iPads. I'm looking at an Air. I'm looking at a Pro, and I have two other regular iPads. And I didn't work for them, and I have all the apps that I want. I have great apps, and I have plenty of services, and I use them every day. And I have an e-bike that gets me around. I can go locally, and if I need to go far distance, I can use a disabled bus. I can get the train. I can pay for the train with a disabled pass, which is like a third of the regular fare. And it's just God takes care of me, and God doesn't make me work like you because I followed uh, my true self. I haven't hid myself behind a mask. And and when you hide yourself behind a mask, God makes you work because you're not living the way God wants you to live. He wants you to be yourself, whatever that may be. Like I said, if you're a guy, you don't have to be. I'm not gay and I'm not straight, but I don't like being put in a box. And I like sex with women and I like sex with men. And there's nothing wrong with that. Um, I don't date anyone. Uh, I like being single, and I plan to stay single. Now, if I found someone that interested me that much that I wanted to change that, again, that'd be no problem. But it hasn't happened. And I walked away from very a lucrative career. Uh, I know my cousins. They all work lucrative careers, and they have to work 24/7 basically, and they work all the time, and they're barely with their kids, and they spend a lot of time working, and they're missing their life. It's going to be like when they get to be 70 or 60, 65, and they're getting ready to retire. What did you do with your life? I worked. Who the hell wants to say that? You know? And I can say I was myself. I lived my life, not some millionaire's life, or some stockholder's life. I lived my life the way I wanted to. I did with it what I wanted to. I learned the lessons I was supposed to learn. I did crack for many years. I smoked pot for many years. I smoked cigarettes for many years. I don't do any of that anymore. And I haven't done it in 10 years. So, and longer. And, but that was lessons I had to learn. And by doing those things when I was younger, now that I'm older, I don't have to worry about it. I'm not at risk of doing it anymore. I'm not. I don't spend my money on that crazy stuff. I don't have to worry about going down the street and hurting someone. Uh, I can live a carefree life. I can live a peace of mind, and I don't have to wake up in the morning and say, "What did I do last night?" Or call my friend and say, "What happened last night? How did I get here?" All that kind of stuff. And I did all that stuff. I've been there. I drove drunk plenty of times. I used to say I drive better when I'm drinking. And I used to have a beer in the cup holder in the car. I didn't care. But those were my days coming up, and again, I wasn't living by societal norms. Society said don't drive with a beer can, don't drive drunk, and I said, I'll do what I want. And that's what I did, and that's what I've always done. And that's all I'm telling you to do. Live your life. Be yourself. Don't worry about what other people think. Um, no, most people don't even like themselves, so they're not going to like you. And if they don't like themselves, what do you care if they like you or not? So, you know, for a lot of you, I know the thoughts in your head. You think about being with a man. You look at gay websites. You look at men on men sex on the internet, and you think, I can never do that. You want to do it, but you can never do that. And the girls too. The girls think of being with another girl, and they're afraid because they don't want the reputation. They don't want the backlash. They're afraid of their family. They're afraid of their father or their mother. You know, and I can't say that those aren't real fears. They are. But there's more of a fear of losing yourself and not being yourself and being who you are, and not being honest with who you are. And that's all I'm promoting. Be honest with who you are. Uh, Nobody cares if you live a lie, and nobody cares if you die living a lie. You should care. You should care. And as long as you're not hurting anybody, there's really not a problem with it. There's really not a problem with it. And I don't promote hurting anybody. I'm saying be who you want to be. You don't want to wear a hijab. Don't. And I know there could be physical problems with that. They will attack you physically. Uh, but the girls of Iran that took off their hijabs, some of them died. And they were the ones trying to fight the mask, they didn't want to put on the mask anymore, and neither should you. Don't put on the mask. Take it off.